Okay, so I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone. And Dina and I were just talking before I started about how everyone is probably so used to these things by now that you know that you can comment in the chat. Since I can't interact and hear you speak live. So feel free to ask questions there. Dina is going to be our moderator, and I'm so thankful she's willing to do that. That sure helps. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself a little more than just my name. You see it up there on the screen. I'm the technology coordinator for a district called Kaw Valley in Kansas, and we're in Northeast Kansas, west of Topeka, which is the capital city of Topeka, if you're not familiar with it. Dina and I have been friends for a long time, and she's from Western Kansas and recently made a job switch, and now she's closer to our part of the state. So I'm thankful she's here, and she's very knowledgeable too. So that being said, we're going to talk about shared drives. If you'd like access to this resource, you need to fill out the session attendance. It's right there in the presentation as a reminder to do it. Once you do that, then you'll be able to click on and open the Google Slides. The conference hashtag is there too, just as a reminder. If you tweet or if you're posting to Facebook or somewhere, you can use that hashtag. And we'll get started. So what are shared drives? If you are a G Suite for Education or Enterprise domain, you have access to this. And it's basically a place where you can house files and folders. And those files and folders become owned by the domain or organization instead of by an individual. And we'll get into the why, that would be a good thing as we go through this, but that's just a simple explanation of what shared drives are. And as you may have noticed, I'm not going to read slides to you. I know you're very capable. So I'll try and summarize or just kind of go through. And if people want to comment, if you have shared experience or you have comments, go ahead and comment. And we'd love to hear those. So in our district, here are some ways that we use shared drives. I would say all of those, whether it be grade level, content area, for PLC groups, those have been very beneficial and great for our teachers. And then if a teacher from a grade level leaves our district or retires or something, when they leave, all the files are owned by the domain, so they stay in that shared drive. When that teacher's email is deactivated, their files don't all go away if they were put in that shared drive. So that's really nice. Another way, which for accreditation, we need to have a way to house and organize information and then share it with people outside of our district. So this gives you a nice, neat way to do that as well. And so without further ado, I guess we'll get into looking around and I'll go through some things. And once I talk a little bit, I'll go and show you. And feel free to open your Google Drive and do it right along with us. One thing I want to bring up is as we go through, if you don't see shared drives, like when you see my screen, if yours doesn't look that way, then you may have to request that shared drives access from your domain administrator. It is something that you can turn on and turn off. And the next part of that is creating those. So you may be in 2 or 3 shared drives, but you can't make one. That's also something your administrator can turn on and off. So we're going to look at how to make one. So I'm going to bring up my drive right here. And you can see right under it, I have shared drives. And again, if you don't have that, that's something you need to request. So if you're in here, it'll list out all the drives that you are a member of. When I'm in here, I have access to create them. So I can say new. We're just going to call it. I usually call stuff like 1A test because they do numerical and then alphabetical order. And then that way it goes at the top. So now you can see it's there. If you are in your shared drives and you click new, nothing happens. That means you don't have the access to be able to create them. In our district, it's not open. We have it limited, and there's no true, reason for that other than we didn't just want people to make them without fully understanding what they were doing. And so we always have teachers request that access, and then who's going to be the manager of that shared drive. And then once they let us know, we talk to the manager and kind of go through all of this with them so that they understand what they're managing. So that's how you create one. So we're going to go back here. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the menu in shared drive. Sorry, I double clicked. And there's just a list of things that you can do right there real quick as soon as you create it from a drop-down menu. A lot of this works in a very similar way to My Drive. If you navigate that all the time, you're going to notice that some of this is very familiar, which is nice because that makes it really user-friendly. And then the next slide is a quick and easy just view of what every type of permission you can give. So you can see the manager can do everything. And then a content manager can do most things. A contributor basically just can contribute. They can't delete or throw anything away or move anything or add or remove members. You also have a commenter or a viewer. And so that's in there just so you have a quick and easy way to kind of look back as a reminder. And so now we're going to go in and actually take a look around at those things. So I'm going to open up the drive I just made. And right here you have a drop down. And then here are some of the choices you have. So you can manage members. And right here is where you would type in. I'll just add some people. We'll even add Dina. You're not in there, Dina. Not your new email. Okay. I'll just add Scott. Okay. And I'm going to make Scott a content manager. And when you do click here, I like that they have listed out under them some of the things they can do. So it just kind of reminds you. And maybe I want him to be able to add, edit, move, and delete, but not actually add people to this. So I'm going to leave him as a content manager. And I can type him a message and say why I'm adding him and what this is for. I'm not going to do that right now, or he'll be confused as to what this is. So I'll just say share. And then if I go back in here, well, now you can see it's 2 people. 2 manage members. Scott will show up there. And at any point in time, if I want to add more members, I can go back in here and do it. If I wanted to change somebody's access, like I didn't want Scott to be a content manager anymore, I could remove him by clicking there. I could make him a manager, a contributor, a viewer, a commenter. So it's really easy to change someone's access. Okay, so the next, you can email members. This is kind of a great thing where you can just go to email and it emails everybody in this team drive. So if I had 10 people in here and I went email, they would all pop up right here. I can send myself a copy, type in email and send it. It's just kind of a nice way to send one to everybody that's part of that shared drive. Okay. Then you have some settings right here. And these are, I would say, pretty important to consider. So there are only 3, but you have things like sharing outside of your district. So like we have a team drive, you might have seen it, called Audiology, and our audiologist puts files in there. She works outside of our district. She's contracted. So we need to leave it open for her so she can have access to it. Now, grade level teachers may not. They may not want that shared outside of the district. So, right, like this one, I have it open. People outside can be given access. But if I clicked edit, I could change it to only people in our district. Sharing with non-members. So, can I open a file and share it with, let's say, Dina, even though I wasn't able to add her? Yes, I can still do that. I can still share a file with somebody who's not a member of the shared drive. But I could turn that off. If I didn't want members of this shared drive to be able to do that, I could change it to only members. Okay, and then download, copy, and print. You can turn that off for commenters and viewers if you don't want them to be able to print, copy, or download. I realize there are things like screenshots and things where people could still manage to do some of that. But the quick and easy, you could turn it off and on if you wanted to limit that. So those are your settings. Okay, this change theme, if you use Classroom at all, is going to look very similar to that. You can go to change theme. Your gallery, you just have a lot of different banners you can choose from, which is nice. You can also create a custom theme. You could upload a theme. Here you have rename. If I decided I wanted to rename this at any point in time, I could. Okay, I have search within, and I'm actually going to show you a different shared drive that has some files in it to do this one. It's really nice. So in here, this shared drive has a ton of documents in it that are organized different ways. But if I wanted to find something, I could search just within this drive. Like if I knew I put it in here, but I couldn't find it, I could do, like if I know it's an agenda, but I can't remember which one, I could just see what all's in here that's an agenda. So that's a really nice feature that's part of that menu. Okay, so the next thing is you can hide a shared drive. So something we'll kind of look at later is that a shared drive has to have all the contents gone before you can delete it. So like this one I could delete because there's nothing in it yet. But let's say it had lots of files in it and I needed to kind of archive it. That would be the word I would use, is archive. Well, there is not an archive in shared drives, but there is this hide. So if I go to hide and then I go back into my shared drives list, it's not there anymore. It was at the top. And so it's just archived. It's out of my view. I don't have to look at it. If I want it back, if I just go directly to the right over here, it says hidden shared drives. So I can just go there. I can find it. I can open it back up. And then I can say unhide. So now if I'm back, it's up there at the top again. So that's really a nice thing to know. Somebody may add you to one because they want you to look at some stuff for them periodically, but you don't need it all the time. So you could hide and unhide it. You can view the trash, and this trash is just for this shared drive. So it's not like the trash over there on the left, that's the trash for, my drive and shared drives all together. This is just for this. And if I go to view, you can see it'll tell you it's only things deleted from this shared drive. If there's anything in there, I would be able to restore it, which is really nice. It sits in there for 30 days before it goes all the way away. Okay, so And then we just talked about deleting. So this one I could delete. I'm not going to because we're going to continue to use it throughout this. But if I had files in there, so I'll show you, this one has files. And if I wanted to delete it, you can see it's grayed out. I can't. It gives you that information, which will tell you unless it's empty, you can't delete it. Okay. How are we doing? Do we have questions yet?
I think we're doing pretty well between Travis and I think we've got them covered.
Yay. Okay. Thanks for hopping on, Travis, and helping. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the next thing you would obviously do, right? You create the shared drive, you add members, you make sure everyone knows what this is and what it's for. So now you can start adding files and folders. There are a few things to just know. Creating a folder, which we'll look at and I'll show, is similar to what you do in MyDrive. You can upload a folder from a thumb drive or a device, and the subfolders, if it has subfolders in it, will stay intact. So that's really nice. It is not yet supported for folders from MyDrive to get moved into Shared Drive. And you can try going through the steps, but on the very last step, it tells you that's not allowed yet. And I do think it's because folders sometimes can have things in them that have been collaborated on. So like different people have collaborated on that folder. So there's lots of different ownership possible for the files in that folder. So you're not able to yet, but I always tell people make a new folder in the shared drive and drag the files in there that you want. That's a great way to do it. Or if you have a folder in MyDrive that's intact the exact way you want it, then download it to a thumb drive and then upload the whole folder into the shared drive. So that's kind of a workaround for that. Depending on your domain setup, you could need to be the owner of a file to move it into that shared drive. That's how our domain is set up. And it kind of makes sense. If you're just the editor of a document, not the owner may not want you moving it out of their ownership into the domain's ownership. Okay, so now we're just going to look at creating folders, uploading, moving some files. So we're going to go back into the shared drive I made. So you're in here, so you would just go to new and folder. And we'll call it folder 1. And it shows up in there. And then just like in MyDrive, it's great. You have an quick, easy way to organize on the fly. If you know you want it in this shared drive, in this folder, you can just open the folder and anything you want to make to put in there, you can. So we'll just throw a doc in there real quick. We'll let that spin and we'll go back over here. So we put a doc in there real quick. So that's how you make a folder. If you wanted to, I'm going to go back to new. If you wanted to upload a file or a folder, you do that from here. So we're going to look at the folder. And it'll bring up some folders I have on here. So can maybe do this one. And when you upload it, it will tell you there's 10 files in there. It'll upload these. Only do this if you trust it. That's my Windows telling me be safe. So it'll start uploading. My folder goes here. It'll show you down here, just like in MyDrive, the status of it when it gets done. So it's done. So it's real easy to upload a folder. And then a file would work the same way. So let's see. So we need to look at moving files. So first, let's name this. We'll call it folder 1 doc. Take it out of there. Okay. And then go back to my shared drive, and here it is. And so there's my folder 1. I had it open, so when I did that folder upload, it went right in there. So again, it's a great, easy way to just stay organized. I say that, and then I don't know if I always am super organized. I sometimes don't organize everything the best, but I try. So let's say I had something in my drive, a file of some kind that I want to get into here. So remember I said you can't just drag a folder over, it won't go. You have to do files. So I'm going to make a new folder and just call it moved files. Wait for it. I'm going to go over here now to my drive and open it. And I'm going to go into this folder and I have a dot called move me. So then I can either close this up over here and open up my shared drives and I can see that 1A test, and I could just take it and drag it and move it. And it says moving, it says it's been moved, members will have access. Real quick, I'm going to undo it and show you a different way. So that's one way to do it. The way I typically do it is I right click on it and I go to move to, and then I move it out of there. I move it out of my drive. I go to my shared drives and then I find it in the list. Then I can pick which folder I want to put it in. If there was a subfolder in here, I could click it and then I can move it here. I could even click a new folder, make a new folder to put it in. I'm going to move it here. It changes ownership to a shared drive file. So again, it just reminds you of that. So that's kind of nice. So that's moving files. Again, that works if you're familiar with My Drive and just moving files around in there. It's very similar. So we'll go back to the presentation. Man, I'm very surprised my kids haven't interrupted me yet. I told them not to, but Dina can verify before we started, my son was in here asking me things. So,
Well,
okay.
I'm going to interrupt you because I think we have a good discussion here. So Rhonda and Trish are asking, when you move something to a shared drive, it's still showing up in your Google Drive. It's just no longer in your My Drive, but you'll still be able to access it and see it in the shared drive as long as you're a member to that shared drive.
Yeah, so that's a great question because if you're the owner, you don't want to totally completely lose that. But yeah, you'd want to make sure that you are a member of that shared drive. Or if someone takes that membership off for you, but you want access to it, that individual file is shared with you. And that setting, remember the setting I showed, is set to allow files to be shared to people outside of the shared drive.
Did that answer that, Rhonda and Trish?
Okay, interrupt me if not, Dina. I'm going to keep going. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about managing files and folders. And this kind of segues into what we were just talking about a little bit, because that starred, you can star things in the My Drive. You can also star things in your shared drive and it just shows up in your starred. So there's not a separate starred for shared drives. It's just a starred overall. So that kind of is a way you can see, oh, it's still there. I still have access to it. Move. So moving files and folders within the shared drive works the same as My Drive. So we'll look at that briefly, but we've kind of done it. Moving from My Drive to shared drive, we'll just look at if you're moving within the same shared drive. Then deleting and restoring. So we already talked about how the shared drive has to be empty to delete it. And if it's not, then you can't delete it. And then you can restore deleted files, which we looked at the trash. We'll go ahead and throw something away and restore it just so everybody can get walked through that. Okay, so we'll go in here And I'm going to get this Google Doc and right click on it. And I'm just going to say add to starred. So you would also have the whole folder. So this is the whole folder. I could add that whole folder to starred as well. So then over here, if I go to starred, and I have a lot of starred things, so you'll see more than just these two things that we starred. But over here, you can see who the owner is. And if you go down, you can see this little shared drive icon right here. So here's the moved files I just did. Here's that folder. And here's something else from a different shared drive. So you can see I'm not the owner, but I can still go in here and access it from here. Like Dina said, they would also show up in your shared drive if you searched with, or shared with me if you searched for them there. So you still have that access. I use it, as you can see, some of these I probably need to unstar. But if I'm using something a lot, I'll star it, and that way I can easily get to it. Okay, so we'll go back into our test there. And okay, we were gonna look at moving within here. So I'm gonna keep going back to that Google Doc. So in here, if I just wanted to move this to the other folder in my shared drive, I could do it from the drop down over here. We'll just open up this one. I could take it, it's in move file, so I could just drag it into folder 1 if I wanted it there instead. And again, I'm going to undo it. And the other way is just the same way as we showed before. It's just a little faster because I don't have so many clicks, because it's just going to a folder in the same shared drive. So I just go back and I can pick the other one and move it there. Okay, so that's moving. We'll close that up and I'll go back to just the home page of that shared drive. And we'll look at deleting and restoring now. I don't know if anybody's ever had to do this, but I've had different times, like in a shared drive, where there's more than one manager and somebody deleted a file and they didn't mean to, or somehow it got moved into the trash. And so as long as you catch it within 30 days, you can move it back. It doesn't happen very often. I think you have to be pretty I don't know, when you see the word delete, you're thinking hopefully about not deleting it if you don't actually need to. So we'll just take this move me and we'll click on it. The trash is up here if I highlight it, or I can right click on it and say delete for everyone. It does give you this message, so that's nice. You're having to be, like very conscious of what you're doing, but I'll say, okay, I'm going to delete it for everyone. If somebody says I can't find that doc, I think, I know it was in here, I could go back to my menu drop down here and view my trash, and then it's in here. So there's something in here. It tells you who threw it away and when they did it. So I guess if somebody's saying, no, it wasn't me, you can prove it if they're the one that did it. Once you're in here, you can go to it, and right here, this means restore. So you could click that, or you could right click on it and you could say restore. And it will say restore. You can undo, or you can say show file location, and it'll hop you right back into that shared drive and show you where it went back to. So those are just some kind of things that I think are important to know are there. I know I got the end of the day session, so I hope everybody's awake. All right. So sharing and collaboration. So these are just some reminders on sharing of a shared drive. The files you put in there automatically are shared with the members, and whatever level of access you gave them or the manager gave them is what they have. So like if you put files in there and they're a viewer, they can view all files and folders. Any member could also then share those with people who aren't members, if you don't restrict the sharing. So you may want to or may not want to. And then we'll look at sharing, unsharing, and link sharing here in a minute. It's similar, or if not the exact same as just doing that with a file in My Drive. The one thing that is a little bit different is that if you have a folder in that shared drive, you cannot share that folder to people who are not members. You can only share files. And I know I've seen some threads where people have really wanted that access, and they're just not allowing it right now. And I think the feeling is that, well, if they really need access to a bulk of the files in that shared drive, then maybe they just need to be added as a member, even if they just have view access. Okay, so now we'll show sharing, unsharing, and link sharing. So I'll show you what I meant real quick. I'm in this folder 1. If I go here, I can't click share because it's not an option. I can click this get shareable link, but I just want to show you because it doesn't actually work. So if I say, any of these things here, it tells you sharing folders that are inside a shared drive is not supported. So I have wondered, since that shows up now, if maybe they are going to add it at some point. But right now you can't share that folder. Now, let's say this MoveMe, if I want to share this doc with somebody, I have the same capability like I would in any Google Doc to just click share. And since I have this set up so that I can share from the outside, I could do that as well. So say share. And if you remember at the beginning, I added Scott as a member. So there's only 2 of us that are members. So now I'll share it with somebody else. And he's not a member of the group, but maybe I still want him to look at it. I'm not going to notify him. So say share, and then I was able to add him. So that's the only thing in this shared drive he can actually access, but I could share this with him. The other thing you could do with a file is you could, let's see, get a link, which this is the same as in My Drive. So I could change it and say anyone in our domain could view it, or anyone with the link could view it, and I could click done. Or I could copy the link before I click done and send that in a chat or something to whoever I'm trying to get to look at it. I am going to just change it back down to restricted. I don't know why anyone would want to look at my blank document. So let's see. So all we were going to look at, yep. So, unsharing. So just like in My Drive, if you have something shared with somebody and you do not want them to have access any longer, like I just shared it with Carrie, I could go right here and just remove him, and then his access goes away. It always tells you right here, pending changes, so I have to click save to save it. So I want to go back in there because as we were, let's see, looking at that, I wanted to show, and we'll add him back in here. So if I go back in there, you have all guests and members. You may have seen that pop up and you may have already clicked on it yourself, but here's everyone. Here's the guest. So he's the guest because he's not a member of the shared drive. And then there's the members. So that's kind of a nice feature. You can kind of see if it is in fact shared with someone who you don't have as a member of your shared drive. Okay, so we'll save that. Go back out. Okay, so really, hope I didn't go too quick. I felt like I talked really fast. It's hard when we don't have that verbal communication going back and forth like we would in a session where we're face to face in person. So I'm sure Dina and Travis have done a great job of answering questions, but if we have more questions, I'll stay on for however long. Everyone does have my email too, so reach out like if you think of questions later. So
We've also got Gail in here chipping in, so she's done a great job.
well, I want to know. I can only see Travis said it's a new update. What's the new update? He always knows.
I think what Travis was referring to was, where you were talking about that it's showing, but you don't have the option to, share a folder. I think he was referring to sharing the folder.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, that wasn't there, so I'm thinking maybe it'll be an update. But if you go out there and search and read some of the threads, there's good rationale for not, or for allowing it. So I would like to see the maybe link share and maybe it where you can only set it to view. That'd be kind of nice, but
well, he said he was referring to sharing folders.
Okay. I know one response basically said that they suggested, which I thought was kind of crazy, but if there was somebody, were a bunch of things they wanted them to have access to, they were like, well, just download the folder and put it on a thumb drive and give it to them. Well, yeah, but it's not near as easy as just like using something cloud-based. So I go back to, well, if you want them to have all that, just add them. So
to me, if they're sharing that much, then maybe their shared drive, what they were intending it for, has grown beyond that shared drive, and maybe it needs to be separated.
Yeah. Does anybody have, maybe like you listen to the session, you have some great ideas for how this could be used, or in your own district, ways that you utilize these shared drives? I always just like to hear what other people are doing.
We use them for organizing for parent-teacher conferences a lot.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I see content areas using the shared drives.
Mm-hmm. I know that the one folder like audiology, I know our SPED director has really utilized them for some different teams she has in place. And it's worked really well because those teams are between lots of different buildings, so they don't see each other a lot. And it gives them that like collaborative space to put files in, or to like things that are student specific that they all need to be able to see. And then she can see them. So
Wes has got a great one. He said they're using shared drives as a school-wide knowledge database.
Oh, that's a great idea. Curriculum, somebody said, Wes. Hi, Wes. For vertical alignment, scope, and sequence. That's great.
Peggy had a question. She said, would you use a shared drive for a shared calendar like scheduling parent-teacher conferences? Good question.
So you could. I think you would want to have it be for maybe like more than just that, I bet you could, and then you could put each grade level in a folder. Or like somebody said they share it as like a campus type of thing. I could see it even being like maybe your principal or office staff use it, and they have a folder called like parent teacher conferences, and like ours is a spreadsheet, and teachers can click on it and it has tabs for each grade. And but you could put stuff in there like that all year and just say it's in the shared drive. That would be something I could see working well for an office staff instead of getting another email that gets lost.
So one thing I noticed is some of them are using it with their students, and that's one thing that gets debated within school districts is you can open up shared drives based on organizations, and you might have your teachers in one organization and your students in a different one. And so I've been in a district where we did not open up shared drives for students. So that's something to keep in mind based on what your administrator decides.
Yeah, and I've seen that too, Dina. In our district, it's not. We have talked about it. I saw someone said they share out what somebody said debate. They use it for evidence for debate. Somebody said for Scholars Bowl. It would be great for things like that, organizing that information in a usable format for kids. Someone said their staff handbook is in a shared drive. And then, like what I was referring to, the office staff secretaries have made a shared drive for signups. That's great. Handbook schedules, all that stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, it's just a great resource. So, if you haven't used it or if it's not turned on for you, I think it's a great resource. And again, I think we haven't opened it up to students, but no one has asked for that. So getting some ideas here, I think that it would be a great thing for like our debate coach or Scholars Bowl coach or forensics even to try.
I think it's something that everyone should consider, and here's why, is our sponsors and coaches change often.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that great information may not get left for the next sponsor or coach. So if that's all in a shared drive and students have access to that, you're not delaying the process if you need access to that.
Yeah. And I know as we've had even like a classroom teacher transition out, that maybe they weren't using shared drives yet. We just had them put their files in a shared drive so that next person coming in, everything's just right there. So, and then it's in there, like it's in there now. So it'll just stay in there. So,
if they're willing.
oh yeah, that would be great. Anna's in our district. See, there's our guinea pig. Thank you, Anna. she said, oh, my battery's low. She said for FFA resources, that would be awesome.
There are people that care about data at almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's awesome.
That's funny. Yes. I care about data. Maybe, I don't know. It's not Friday at 4, so I can still care on Thursday at 3:45.
Oh, Teresa's got a good one too.
Oh yeah, school leadership teams. Yep. Oh, that makes me think it'd be similar. Some of our districts in Kansas, we have something called Redesign. They created for their redesign teams a shared drive. So,
hey, Wesley's got something there. Can you see that?
oh, he said maybe I could have a QR code. Could be because it's not clickable. I know. I should have done that. I'll put it in the chat. I figured if you opened the resource, you would have it. So here, let me get out of here.
Oh, I see what he's. Oh, are you doing it?
Yeah, I think I have to get out of here though, all the way.
Here, I got it for you.
Thank you. I'm being slow, and I really am going to get my charger because I'm thinking it'd be bad if my laptop just died. This is my husband's, like where he sits and works most of the time. So I kind of like stole his office space today. We may be about done, but
we are. So you can stay on just for a little bit longer to answer any questions, but we're at that 3:43 mark. So Teresa, you did a great job. I learned some things I didn't even think about with shared drives because I'm not in them all the time like you probably are.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you learned something. I always figure, at any conference, if you get one thing, that it's worth it, So I hope everybody got one thing, I guess.
Lots of great ideas of how to utilize it because I think shared drives, like Wes said, is just sometimes it's a huge debate in the district whether it's important or not because I think people get confused of what it's meant for, and And if you've never been in a district where you had network drives back in the olden days, off of an Office or a Windows server, it's kind of a hard understanding of what that means.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could never go back to some of those days. I need all the cloud-based stuff.
Well, as a former district technologist at Oakley, I don't want to manage it because I'm not a server expert, but
Yeah, me
I want someone
neither.
else to manage that for me.
Yeah, and I love the admin part of Google. It really, I mean, we always talk about things we wish for, but overall, it has a lot of great stuff. So, did you send that to us, Dina, that link?
I put it in the chat. Were you
Oh,
talking
okay,
about
good.
the chats for the feedback, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was like,
Wes,
you probably need attendance one too. I think
Wes
it's
is
so
talking about mapped drives from a Mac. Oh my gosh, yeah. Those
oh,
are even
yes.
horrible days.
Or we still have like if you're in the district, we still have a drive and we have I think 3 people in the entire district using it. It's Novell is what we use, but we've pretty much these last few people are about to retire. So it's like, but they have tons of stuff in there and we've tried to say like upload it to Drive, and we're just not quite there. But I know it makes our Windows machines run a lot faster when that's not on there at startup, like trying to get you to log into it. Even if you're not at school, it would still do it. So, yeah, see, Wes says, oh no, not Novell. I agree. It's terrible.
Well, thank you
So
all
cool
for
people are saying,
attending.
yeah, I was going to say from Texas, from Arizona. So awesome.
And if those of you that don't know Peggy, she's part of TCEA down in Texas, and I have no idea what they're doing for next year, but it's an extremely beneficial event to get lots of great knowledge like what you've got here. So I always put a plug in there for them. If you're from Kansas, don't forget in the spring, depending on what we get to do, we have a great conference for technology called MACE, and it's a great one to check out to get lots of great knowledge like this. So always put a plug in there for Travis because they do a great job for us there at Mace in Manhattan. So keep looking for these virtual or other events as we go on. You never know.
Our district has one, and it'll be the last week in July. So,
Are you guys
um,
having it?
yeah, we decided to have it virtually. So, we're excited,
Awesome.
and I'm so thankful for this and for Travis because now I think we have seen like the platforms that work well. And like, as we've worked through some issues this week, like having you on here moderating has been great. So,
Oh, you guys, you cannot forget theirs. So what Teresa's talking about, I'm very passionate about because it's a very, so they put on an event for just their teachers that, because they don't want to pay for subs all year long going to different things. So they hold a technology conference in the summer and it's optional for their teachers to attend. I'm sure it's highly encouraged, but they opened it up to anyone to attend. And what I love about it is they have teachers presenting at this conference. And even though they may not be super polished presenters or something, I love hearing about how they're utilizing it as a classroom teacher. So I learn as a classroom teacher from other classroom teachers really well versus sometimes just like me, the tech coach, I don't always, I'm sharing ideas, but I didn't live and breathe it all the time. So if you have an opportunity, KVATE is what you want to Google, KVATE, to know what she's talking about because it's worth your time.
it's.com. It's just kvate.com. So, but yeah, that's the best part. I haven't been in the classroom for a few years and I even love it. Just the conversation that everyone has. So, oh, here we go. I was going to put it in the chat. And Travis says he's not organizing. What? Travis, come on.
I didn't sign up because I was so unclear what you guys were doing. So if you need some help with presenters, as long as I don't have a conflict in my personal life, I'd love to help out.
Oh, awesome. We, gosh, Monday, I think we finally we're trying to get kind of gauge, just like everybody else, where we're going to be at the end of July. And we finally just decided, like, so we don't have to change it last minute or cancel it, we could try and do virtual. So I think the beginning of next week we'll have call for presenters, so we'll send it to you, Dina. So
Okay.
that's one thing you can present from anywhere, right? I guess if it's virtual.
Yes. And I learned I'm not using that old Mac ever, ever, ever again.
Well, I'm on Windows and it's done well, but I did read on like StreamYard that sometimes it can crash. So for whatever reason, Chrome on Windows, but it's worked great. I tested it and I had no issue. So anyway.
I had a little bit of an issue with it just because it's a huge resource hog on that Mac was a big deal. And then I was using my Windows computer like I'm on right now, and my voice was fluttering in one. I think it was Travis's presentation when we first started. So
See, Wes has got you right there, Dina. A good video card.
I just need a new Mac.
Okay,
Well, I just need a new
might
Mac.
Yeah. Well, I have this Lenovo, or it's a ThinkPad. It's a Lenovo Windows machine, and we upgraded these. Gosh, I've had this for like 5 years. We upgraded them a year ago for some, like we're on a rotation, and I didn't get the new one, and I'm glad I didn't, because mine works really well. Like it's solid, and then the next generation of them had issues. So I'm like, I'll just keep mine until it starts to slow down. Right now it works great. So
I don't even know if Travis is still on, Wes. You are
I don't either.
hilarious.
I love, like, we're gonna get all these tips. He's gonna fix your Mac, Dina.
I'm just going to mail it to him because mine's a 2014 and it's a MacBook Pro, so he ought to be able to do something with it.
Yeah, that's what I will send him mine too. You have two, Wes. I think that's what your mine is. I have a Mac and it's terrible. I mean, it's slow and it takes forever to start up. I mean, I even cleaned it off, and it just still, I think I'm just used to, I think the newer technology maybe just works better. Wes probably disagrees, but.
And Wes, I have an SSD in it, so I've got that part done. But I am running Parallels so that I can run my books for my farm on Windows. And I don't know if that's causing the issue.
Yeah. Okay, now we're just chatting about random things. So
okay, so you probably ought to hit stop.
Okay, we'll see you later, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.